Hey everyone, it is Francesco here. Welcome back to another video here on the Keep Productive YouTube channel. If you're brand new, welcome, and if you're a regular, welcome back. So in today's video, I am actually going to be doing something I don't normally do. I'm going to be doing a full workflow video. I'm going to show you every single major productivity app that I use across my day. I want to share how I use them, how I use them together, if I do, and also a bit more detail into some of the other micro resources I use across my day. And the main reason I wanted to do this video is because I've been putting up setup videos for a while now around like Notion, Todoist, and Evernote, and how I'm actually using them in context of my everyday. And that's brilliant, and I get a lot of comments that are like, Francesco, go deeper into that, and I'm like, okay, I need to. I know I need to. So today's video hopefully will clear up a lot of that and hopefully pull together how I'm using them in everyday practice. Now, of course, I'll include everything in the description below so you guys can go away and check all that stuff out. I'll probably do some sort of article as well. If I can manage to get it out early, I'll put it in the description so you guys can go away and actually see a website of all of this stuff and how I use it. So let's start off with the tools that I actually use to kick things off. And for those who don't know, Todoist is my to-do list application of choice. I actually use Todoist as basically a window of my 30 days of actionable tasks. So inside of my Todoist, you'll tend to find like most important tasks of the day, just daily items that I need to get done, things that are really tangible and actionable. Now I have as my calendar application Google Calendar. I also use Calendars 5 on iOS because I find that it distills Google Calendar in a bit of a slightly nicer light, and I use that for planning events and activities, so nothing too complicated there. Now Evernote is my chosen note-taking resource. I use it to store important information and take notes across my day, and that can be any bit of detail. Notion is, as I've talked to a lot of you guys in the comments, it's almost like my 30,000 feet view of all of my projects, almost like goal setting, planning, almost how I used Trello to some extent, which I'll come on to in a moment. And I'm also going to mention today how I'm using Google Drive too. I use Google Drive mainly for client work and document creation, so it's really a supporting tool and doesn't really conflict with the likes of Evernote. So just a note, I wanted to talk about Trello because obviously you guys know that I've used Trello quite a lot in the past. I used it actually for most of the time in my sort of university years. And even afterwards, like the first year and a bit of freelancing was that. But about 2 months ago, I sort of moved away from it. And I'm using it solely for project management resources at work and also for a few outlining things. So I'll go into more detail on that when I talk about Notion, but it's just something to be aware of. And it's actually taken me a really long period of time to fully transition and confirm my transition. So I actually started using Notion in June time last year, and then Trello was slowly being replaced in a sense, but I didn't actually know. I didn't actually make the full commitment, so it took me about 6 to 8 months to fully transition. So let's start with Todoist. I wanted to talk about my sort of process as I go across my day. Now Todoist tends to be open most of the time on my day. I use the Mac version mainly. I have the iOS version, which I use as I go about my day to capture the sort of like tasks, I guess, that come in. So what I do is I capture most of my stuff in my inbox, and a lot of the time that's using the Control L, I believe it is, I've set it up on Mac as. So I actually save tasks while I'm in other browsers, and I'll demonstrate a few of the ways that I'm using that in a moment. But yeah, it's really a nice way to quickly capture tasks. And then what I do is if I'm out and about, I will actually capture stuff to the inbox. and that can be anything from shopping lists, but the application works great offline, so I'm always just adding stuff in there, ideas as I'm going about my day. Now, I don't use the Siri integration, but it's something that I definitely will look to do when I get a bit of a faster phone. Now, using the day section, so I actually plot all of the tasks for my week using day. So I click day, and when I'm doing my full overview using Notion, which I'll talk about a little in a bit, I put in all of the actionable items for the week ahead. Now, I would use comments to add context to tasks. So you guys may have seen that I use comments, but I haven't really talked a great deal about it. I'll include links and sometimes even checklists of items that I need to actually get done. And sometimes even like up to 7 to 10 different tasks inside a checklist. But this just provides me with a nice view and doesn't necessarily push me to use the subtask function. I like the subtask function, but I just prefer using it with client activity because it makes it more actionable. Whereas if I've got admin tasks, I like to just list them using a simple checklist 1, 2, 3, 4 inside of Todoist comments. Now, I'll include links in there as well a lot of the time to Evernote links and things like that, but no real direct automation or Evernote workflow there. I also use the later, which used to be called plan, to capture things for later. And you're probably wondering, what exactly is that? Well, it's pretty much items that are like things for the weekend, or I would say anything 3 days plus that I know I'm going to go there and check in that inbox when I do my weekly overview. So I know I'm going to get that down there, but actually it really does help because they're like just things for later and things that I can come to in the future. Again, that's sort of like replicated off GTD, but not really. And something that I think you guys can sort of take with a pinch of salt there. Now, in terms of sort of changes with my Todoist, I used to have that morning routine tab. I sort of got a bit annoyed at it because I actually knew my morning routine. I was just ticking off something just to tick it off for the sake of starting my day. So what I've actually started doing is any admin periods of time in a day, I will basically slot in like an admin task in a day and then add a bunch of smaller items. So for example, if I kick off my day, I would want to start doing a few things like 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I've done all of those micro actions. So for example, maybe like, clear email, update client board, update. So things that take between 5-10 minutes to do, but just really a good way to do it. Now, in terms of viewing my week ahead, my week is basically a timeline, so I can basically scroll per day on actions, and I use a sort of theming to some extent. I only really change my Todoist every once a day, and that's just dependent on if there's something that's changed based on an event or based on other items. Now, Google Calendar. Now, this is quite interesting as we move on to another one. Events and activities tend to get organized here. I open it in my morning using the Calendars 5 app on my phone just to double check what meetings I have, but a lot of the time I tend to know what's coming up. I'll use the Google Home integration in the morning. Sometimes if Becca's out of the room, I'll just go, what have I got on the calendar today? And it tends to tell me, but I pretty much store just all static events here. There's not really a great deal of I'm going to say like detail to some extent. There's always like something happening every day, and I'll use the timings and details of each thing. Now, I've started actually recently theming the days using the calendar. I never used to do this. I actually got inspired by Mike Vardy in that video when he was talking a lot about it. I previously did this, but tend to be in my head. I knew that Monday would be content day or Tuesday would be content day and sort of flip it about. But using the theming for the all day function in Google Calendar, it's actually very, very useful. Now, I only use the calendar for meetings and things, so you'll see a fairly bare open space, but I actually used it quite aggressively before, so it's actually been such an upgrade since that one. Now, moving on to Evernote, you're probably wondering what sort of things do I store in my Evernote account, and I actually store a range of things, ideas, meeting notes, and just general notes, projects. And you're probably wondering, that sounds like a generalized amount, but you've got to remember I've been using Evernote for like 5, 6, 7 years now. So I've got like this array of notes. Like I've literally got my history of my career progression and even things like that in there. So it's important for me to note that I am involving with my Evernote. I used to put all of that sort of stuff in there a lot of the time, and now I don't know, not as much. I used to use it for journaling, but now I don't use it at all for journaling. So it's always going to be changing. But my sort of general rule for Evernote is anything that is really focused on less than 2 pages goes into Evernote. So for example, if I'm like creating a document and it's like, I know it's going to be like a proposal or something like that, I'm like, or more than 2 pages, I'm like, no, it's not going to go into Evernote, it's going to go into Google Drive, which I'll talk about in a bit. But Evernote provides me basically a hub of all of my data, and I wouldn't store stuff in Google Drive. Like for example, I wouldn't store a quick note in Google Drive because it's not ideal for search, and it's not ideal for quick access either. I tend to open Google Drive on my desktop and Evernote on my mobile device. Now Evernote does give me what I need when it comes to making speedy notes, but also detailed rich notes. As you see on my setup, I'm using Evernote for fast pipeline planning, opened projects, and that's something that I've only recently been doing. So for example, if I'm looking to visualize what's coming up, or even a proposal for a client on a piece of work, that is very brief, like project based, I will actually use Evernote tables and a combination of multimedia features. So it's something that has taken me time to use, but it's almost like a mid-range. It's sort of like a baby Google Drive to some extent most of the time, but it just provides me a bit more flexibility than Google Drive does. Now Notion, probably the biggest thing that people are nudging me about. Many people are asking me how I'm using Notion. It's pretty much my new Trello to some extent. I previously used Trello for long-term planning, and I recommend it so much still, but Notion has taken top spot for me. But do remember that it has taken me like 8 months to fully transition, just because I've been confident on the resources that I need to use in there, and I previously used Trello for like 4 or 5 years, and I still do on a daily basis, so it's not something that I've taken lightly. And now I would say my Notion use is really weak. I'm looking to go proper hardcore on it because it's not even touching the surface of what I need to do and optimize. There are so many features. It's almost like it's really hard to explain. It's almost like when you're using Evernote only for just scribbling up checklists and that's it. Like there's so many features in the advanced abilities that you can go into detail with, and if you don't, it's sort of like you're losing out on it because of that. So I'm using it at the moment really for like high planning. So I will visualize all of my my roadmap, my long-term goals, some of my client projections and sales activity as a freelancer, and also a few of the Keep Productive projects, which helps me just to manage. The thing that I really like about Notion is it's so flexible, and I can make it into a dashboard however I like, and it's like ever evolving as a tool. So I'm using it more and more often, I would say, on a daily basis, just because it gives me this higher level of view. Now I think in the future it's going to have integrations with like Evernote and Todoist, so I can actually weirdly see it, and I'll probably talk about this in another feature, as a potential tool that I can run everything in Notion. So imagine you've got the ability to panel in and see your Todoist tasks, and a panel in to see your Evernote. Now just a note here, I would not use Notion as my task manager. I'm not sure why, but the resource really doesn't, for me, be suitable for a to-do list checklist yet. It's not speedy enough, but that's just my honest opinion so far. Now Google Drive, you're probably wondering, because I don't speak about Google Drive that often, I see it as a tool that I use for work. It's very similar to Trello to some extent now. It's a tool that I will use for projects and activities. I use it to store files, images, videos, documents, anything really, and also create documents for clients. Now documents are more than they are in Evernote. In Evernote they're more notes, whereas documents, they're more proposals, more meaningful, chunky documents I need for work. And I would use Evernote to write documents and articles. I used to, but now I've fallen in love with Google Docs as that. And that's mainly due to the commenting and editing share abilities. I probably did Evernote solely in the past because I was a student and it was maybe less important, and now it's very much important to have that clarity with comment and sharing abilities. So I use my notebook layout that is inside Evernote into the Google Drive, although right now it's pretty messy, and that's just due to a Mac transfer and a few projects that have gone on. Just need a little refresh at the end of this week. Now you're probably wondering, Francesco, how do you use all of these in one day? And you know, I think that's quite a good question. They all serve a different purpose. One provides task management, Todoist. One provides note-taking, Evernote. One provides event management, Google Cal. One provides life or long-term planning, which is Notion. And one provides document and file storage. Now, you're probably wondering as well, integrations, how do you connect all of these up together? I really don't. I don't use any major connections. Neither have I a fully optimized Zapier or one of the leading automation tools like Workflow to actually help me to craft a personal workflow, but my workflow works for me. I'm looking to do it in the future, but let me take you through a full scenario of how they work together in a very simple structure. So here's a sort of simple week planning session. So I'll start by actually starting with Notion. I'll go into my Notion and view my 3-month roadmap, which is basically like all of the end month goals. What do I need to deliver? Like, what are the deliverables I need to get done? And they could range across all projects or clients. And they're normally pretty actionable too. And what I'll do is, so for example, let's say it's like March, the second week of March, which it is. I will go, okay, I'll go down the list and I'll go, how far am I away from all of these? And what I'll do is I'll tend to use the Control-L to Todoist and save tasks into Todoist from that. And it's just a neat way for me to just like pull actions out of those. So for example, let's say I had like grow Facebook group to 1,700. I could then go, okay, actually I probably need to adapt the Facebook questions when people enter. I probably need to make few more people admin. I probably need to do this. I probably need to do that. And I just post all of those stuff in using Control-L into Todoist. Now you're probably wondering, that's mad. Like I'll then see a lot of stuff in my inbox, and that's what I do at the end of my week, because it then gives me all of my tasks for the next week and helps me to keep focused towards my goal. And that's in month view, so it's very useful. Now, when it comes to the calendar side of stuff, I'll leave that Todoist inbox ready for it in a moment. I'll go to my calendar and plot my focus days. So for example, those all-day themes, and I'll view all of my next week's activities in my calendar. I'll then go over to Todoist once I've made that pretty happy, and I'm happy with the days I've chosen and the event activities that I've gone on. And then I'll plot all of those tasks relevant to that. And this might sound a little bit complicated, but really isn't. So I'll just go, okay, you know, I've actually chosen Tuesday as my filming day. Okay, now I know that all of my film related or recording related items go into Tuesday, for example. So Todoist, I'll go into the day view. And I won't go to inbox straight away. I'll go into day view and plot all of the tasks I need to get done for the week. And I'll use the subtasks inside of most of the client stuff and also just plot everything out. And then I pretty much have a timeline of my week. That's then when I go to the inbox and start plotting out those other major items or adding them to the existing pieces inside of there, if that makes sense. Now, let's use a couple of worked examples in this. I told you this, guys. This would be long, guys. A worked example of this in a specific situation. So, for example, Evernote, Google Drive, and Trello don't usually play a part in this, but let's take you through a few scenarios in which I've used them. So, for example, a client asks me for the end of month report or something like this. I would use Google Drive all day and every day because it's a really nice way to make a professional proposal in document format. Maybe a client asked me for an outline of a part of a project. I'd probably use Evernote because it's quite speedy to send, provides you with short notes and comments. Maybe a client asked me, Francesco, can you start to organize our content? I would probably go to Trello a lot of the time. And if they don't already use a resource like Basecamp or Asana, I'll probably use Trello. Now, another one is a client gives me a list of tasks to get on with after a meeting, and I'll type them up into Evernote and then copy and paste them into Todoist to plot in. So for example, in Evernote, I'll create a meeting note and then have an agenda view of the specific meeting. And then I'll type in meeting notes at the end, I'll copy and paste them into Inbox into there and process them for later. So it's actually a really neat process. So that's a little bit about how those other tools come into play with the workflow. But as I was saying, like all of that process is pretty much ever growing and it grows every single month, I would say, and develops. But you may have seen me talk about a couple of other apps, and I'm only going to mention 3 here. But they're sort of micro situations. So Bear I use solely for scripting. I love it for scripting. I don't know why, it's just such a beautiful application for doing that. So I'm actually using it for that. For example, now using it for the script or the general outline of the videos that I'm talking about. Fantastic Hour 2, I previously used this on Mac, but not so much anymore. I have it on Mac and use it as a way to visualize all of my tasks, but not so much anymore. And finally, Soon is an application on my iPhone that I use to track things I want to go and do. It's not really event-based, it's not task-based, it's just a bucket list app and just makes things look a lot easier to view. So guys, that was my workflow. Really long, and hopefully that gave you a nice outline into the method of my madness. As I said, I'm using lots of different applications, but in a very sleek way. I'm not using overly too many, I don't think. And let me know in the comments what you think of my workflow. But the general community comment today, if you want to put in how you use tools, I'm going to be reading them. I'd love to hear how you're going through your work process. Maybe list the 5 or 3 or whatever, how many you use. It doesn't matter how many you use, the work you get done in the comments, and I'll happily have a good old read. I love reading how other people use stuff. So guys, I hope that was useful. I hope it cleared up a few loose ends. But as you can imagine, it's something that I'm growing and continually improving every single day. Anyway guys, thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed it, hit subscribe if you're brand new, and feel free to join the new Facebook group. You'll love it, I'm sure. Anyway guys, thank you so much for stopping by. Make sure to have a great week, keep productive, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Cheers. Hey everyone, it is Francesco here. Welcome back to another video here on the Keep Productive YouTube channel. If you're brand new, welcome, and if you're a regular, welcome back. So in today's video, I am actually going to be doing something I don't normally do. I'm going to be doing a full workflow video. I'm going to show you every single major productivity app that I use across my day. I want to share how I use them, how I use them together, if I do, and also a bit more detail into some of the other micro resources I use across my day. And the main reason I wanted to do this video is because I've been putting up setup videos for a while now around like Notion, Todoist, and Evernote, and how I'm actually using them in context of my everyday. And that's brilliant, and I get a lot of comments that are like, Francesco, go deeper into that, and I'm like, okay, I need to. I know I need to. So today's video hopefully will clear up a lot of that and hopefully pull together how I'm using them in everyday practice. Now, of course, I'll include everything in the description below so you guys can go away and check all that stuff out. I'll probably do some sort of article as well. If I can manage to get it out early, I'll put it in the description so you guys can go away and actually see a website of all of this stuff and how I use it. So let's start off with the tools that I actually use to kick things off. And for those who don't know, Todoist is my to-do list application of choice. I actually use Todoist as basically a window of my 30 days of actionable tasks. So inside of my Todoist, you'll tend to find like most important tasks of the day, just daily items that I need to get done, things that are really tangible and actionable. Now I have as my calendar application Google Calendar. I also use Calendars 5 on iOS because I find that it distills Google Calendar in a bit of a slightly nicer light, and I use that for planning events and activities, so nothing too complicated there.